Welcome. Joe Volpe, the publisher of Corriere Canadese, North America's only Italian language daily, on behalf of Go Live TV and Corcan Media Group, today to talk about the Toronto municipal elections. And with me is a very special guest, none other than a deputy mayor of Toronto, Anna Bailão, a seasoned professional in Toronto. She's running in Ward.
Well, now it's Ward 9.
That's it.
We finally got it settled.
Yeah, but that Ward 9 now is what? It's the same boundaries as Davenport federally and provincially?
Exactly. So it's exactly the same boundaries as the federal riding and the provincial riding, and used to be the old Ward 18 and old Ward 17, and a couple of streets from Ward 19. But mainly Ward 18 and 17.
Now, I'm more familiar with Davenport, the old Davenport. I shouldn't say old.
So this is the old Davenport.
Yeah, but it's not all that old. It's a place that's undergoing some regeneration.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Davenport was a community with a heavy presence of manufacturing jobs.
It's a long time ago.
Well, I still have two very sweet factories. I actually say I usually represent the sweetest part of Toronto because we have two chocolate factories still.
Where?
So one at Gladstone and Dundas, and another one on Sterling between Bloor and Dundas as well. They still employ each one of them about 400 people. So they're still, it's significant for an area that is almost considered downtown Toronto, Toronto West End kind of thing. It's still significant. But 40, 50 years ago, it was a lot more. You had, lots of manufacturing jobs in there. Most
General
of the
Electric up and down
Lansdowne,
Standard down Lansdowne,
the automotive shops that run along Sterling. So all that area has disappeared. And also at the time, 60, 70 years ago, a lot of the residences that were built in that area were for people that worked in those factories. So
and now it's all gentrification.
Now huge changes come. We actually had to manage that change. So 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and now as little as 8 years ago, I've done a whole plan for the area of Sterling Road. We had to look at those areas, which was a lot of them empty factories, and really think that through on how we're going to revitalize those communities.
Like, for example, the area on Dufferin and DuPont, the old Galleria.
So I
remember when it was the brand new Galleria, by the way.
Okay, I won't comment on that, Joe.
Yeah. Well, take a look at the color of my hair.
So so it was a piece of land that it actually went through a rezoning process. So there was a plan done back in 2007 that was approved but never built. And now it was up for sale for many, many years. And finally, 3 years ago, it was sold again. And the new owners came to the city and said they wanted to do more than just residential. And
in other words, more than just condominiums.
More than just condominiums. That's what
you guys at the municipal council are spending a lot of your time on. Rubber stamping requests of builders to put up more condos.
And I try to think that I always like to do things a little bit different, so I try to be a little bit more proactive. So I try to do a lot of planning studies ahead of that development. We can understand the areas where we're going to have development. We know what we usually call them the soft sites, that we know sooner or later some development is going to go in there. And what I try to do is be proactive with the planning department to create a vision in there. A lot of times we do it with the developer already, because there's already a developer that owns the land, and he knows that he wants to develop.
It's already privately owned by, they're small owners. They're not big developers. So unless somebody's doing some land massing.
But some of them are doing some land massing. And for example, the Galleria, what we did is, even before the developer put together the application, as soon as they bought the land, they came to my office and said, we just bought, we're interested in more than just condos. And I suggested to put a working group together with the residents associations, the parks groups, all the business associations, all the area in there. And for almost a year, we worked on, what were the priorities for the community? What else did we want? We knew that we wanted a daycare. We knew that we wanted a bigger recreational center. We knew that we wanted a bigger and renovated park. We knew that we wanted more roads in the site. We knew that we wanted family-sized units, because this is a family community. We didn't want, a whole bunch of one-bedroom bedroom, 500 square feet apartments. So by working with the developer, we were able to shape more that development, and that's what's happening a lot in our community.
Is that everywhere? I mean, if you take a look, as I recall, the boundaries of Davenport, you've got some areas down along Davenport and DuPont in particular, where you still have some, I guess, distribution of commercial material, building sites, etc. So what's the plan for all of them?
So those strips along DuPont, specifically between Dufferin, I would say, and Lansdowne, St. Clair's, they're really tough to deal with because they're very, very narrow. They're not deep enough, and they're so close to the train tracks that, for example, it's going to be really hard to ever get some residential in there. In that strip, east of Ossington, you're already going to get some residential in there because they're much deeper lots. So
a little bit further away from
the tracks, because that's a safety matter, right? So you don't want to have residences really close, especially on that line there, because there is some, it's not a commuter line. There's actually chemicals and stuff that get. It's a freight line that gets carried on that line. So we have to allow at least 30 meters from the line.
But that's guided by provincial legislation, not necessarily by municipal.
And federal.
And federal.
Well. Yes, absolutely. And so that is a little bit tough. So we're getting more of commercial applications going through that area, which is great. For example, we talked about jobs. One of the things that I want to make sure is that we're also attracting jobs to my community. So I have a lot of...
I mean, aside from small businesses and commercial distribution...
So I'm getting a lot of creative industry jobs. So I have one of the big...
For anybody who doesn't know what that means, it's the artistic community.
Artistic, media. I have a gaming company, one of the biggest gaming companies that right now hires almost 600 people, is going to grow up to 800 people. And obviously, they're one of the largest in the world. They came to our community. Their name is Ubisoft. They're on Wallace and Lansdowne. They're going to hire 800 people. And it's a huge...
So that old church that's over on the east side?
No, that church got turned into a contest. But it's right off the train tracks in there, just between Lansdowne and the train tracks, and just on the west side. And the reality is that by having this big company, we're starting to have other smaller companies in this world that deal with them. They're film production companies and, designer companies and all that. So that's where we're having a lot coming into our area. On Sterling Road, I'm having 3 buildings done, all office, again, done. On Wade, another building, 7-story, beautiful timber building that is proposed, all, again, for creative industries and designs and designers and all this. So for me, that's really important, because I think when you build healthy communities, is you have to attract the jobs, you have to attract the housing, you have to attract these services. Because, for example, even to revitalize our main streets, right? St. Clair,
for example. There's a sore point.
You can't do it just with residential, right? Those small business, they need the lunch crowds, right? We call them the lunch crowds. They need people to...
the lunch crowds on St. Clair? There's only one lane on it. Somebody ruined one of the best streets in all of Toronto for commerce.
It's going to be the best street. We have,
Have you ever tried to drive along St. Clair?
I try to drive, and what we have to do is bring the jobs, bring the residents, work with the businesses in there. It is a beautiful street. I think that we can work to bring back the charm that St. Clair had for decades. I remember when I got to Canada, that's where we would go for ice cream with the family for a walk. I think I'm hopeful that we're still going to bring it back. I think that whole smart track station and the St. Clair transportation plan that we're going to work on around St. Clair and Old Weston Road, because you're right. I mean, there are traffic issues that need to be addressed.
There's huge traffic issues now, Anna. That's a sore point. I used to live down there.
Yeah, but we're gonna widen St. Clair, right? So
how are you going to do that?
So we are buying some land on the south side of St. Clair. You know where Delta Bingo is? That area there? So we're buying some private land there. We're actually going to widen it to 2 lanes in there because that's a huge bottleneck. Huge.
That's all on the west end of St. Clair.
Yeah, but that will help alleviate the bottleneck that creates sometimes all the way to Caledonia. Sometimes it's so bad that you start feeling it all the way to Caledonia.
Start feeling it everywhere. And I don't want to be argumentative, but that place, if you wanted to go shopping, you could easily find a spot. You can't even cross the ruddy street today.
But that's why, good transit, good planning, as you're planning these communities, as new buildings are getting built, we need to think, do we need more public parking facilities in there? Do we need, what else do we need? These are the issues that we as a community need to come together and say, okay, let's be proactive. If this is an issue, is parking an issue? Do we have enough public parking available on this street? Transit, we know that transit is in deficit, that we need that smart track station in there. We're going to expand the Davenport Road, widen St. Clair and that, but what else do we need at other points in times? And that's the analysis that needs to be done, and that's how you're going to bring it back, right? You need to create jobs, you need the lunch crowds in there. You need a little bit of density as well. So, we're starting to have some small condos being built on St. Clair, and that's good because those are more people that are going to be shopping on St. Clair, walking on St. Clair, taking their kids around the Piccinini Center and the waiting pool.
Speaking of that, you're talking about the Piccinini Center, and again, as I say, I used to live there, so I remember that there was a shortage of virtually everything imaginable except kids. Now there's fewer kids, but there's no facilities for anybody. Aside from the Piccinini Center, what else is there?
Yeah. So at the Galleria Mall, we're actually doubling the size of the community center. It's going to be one of the largest ones in the city, with the daycare facility as well. The park is going to get 25% bigger. And very short, so on what we call now the Junction Triangle, we opened another community space. It's called the George Chevallo, because George Chevallo used to be in the area, so we actually pay tribute to him by opening a center in his name, just for youth and children programming in there. And that's what I'm hoping to now be able to do in the north.
You're going to require some provincial and federal help for that, aren't you?
Yeah, and the as the community is developing, as we're having more development happening, that's why it is important that we have a plan so that I can also say, sorry guys, there's all this development happening. We need to make sure that we get these services. This is what I used to get the Dufferin Express bus. I call it the suffering bus, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's horrible bus. Since I got elected, it's been one of my things that is like, oh my God, I need to do something about this. So first we got the extended buses, and they said, it's going to get better, it's going to get better. Not that much better. So I kept going at it, and one of the things that I did is I asked planning to give me all the applications that were around the route, and I used those numbers and said, guys, this is impossible. We need to start planning ahead. We need to start bringing the services. You can't allow all this to be built and only then start thinking about the transit.
That's short-term thinking, but
no. This is actually before the things are being built. We're already saying that there's an express bus route that is going to start October, and we're already saying.
Are you going to be able to get that same kind of action now that you've got 24 wards as opposed to the 44, 25 as opposed to the 44 and the projected 47?
You know what? It's going to be an adjustment for everybody. It's going to be an adjustment for the councillors, it's going to be an adjustment for staff, it's going to be an adjustment for the governance. We have to find, we only have 25 councillors. But one thing I can tell you, Joe, is that my commitment is the same. I'm just as committed, as energetic. I'm passionate about this. So
do you think it's going to require a different type of an approach in terms of being able to win over another 12 councillors to your point of view in order to service your area?
Well, I mean, we used to go around and make sure that we had 23 votes. I think now it's only 12. In that sense, it might be a little bit easier. But I think that...
But the accusation is some of those will have their strings pulled by various parties, whether it's Queen's Park, or the parties in Ottawa.
Well, I hope that's not the case. I think that that's why I think this election is so important. I think we really have to have, really strong city builders elected to the city and people that are really going to stand up for the city. If we're going to have a system that doesn't have political parties, which is what we have right now, we need to stay true to what is important for this city. And you and I know that, sometimes party politics are very different from municipal issues and municipal
Well, they
politics.
should be.
And they should be,
But
exactly.
one of those city builders, who would have been a contestant and has now withdrawn, is a former colleague of yours, Cesar Palacio. Does that make things easier for you, or?
Well, I mean, obviously, when you're running against another incumbent, it's tough. When you're running against somebody that has been dedicating, decades to public life, to the community, it's hard. And I take this opportunity to thank anybody that has dedicated, more than 30 years to public life, to the community. I think that all of us, even if we don't agree with people 100% of the time, we have to thank people for their public service. And everybody knows that Cesar worked really hard.
Yes.
And he has worked really hard and over the years for his community.
Do you know anything about the people who are running against you?
Well, some more than others, because I'm not sure they all live in the community, but the ones that I do, I live in I came to this community when I was 15, when I came from Portugal, Joe, to the area of Brock and Dundas, and then we started going north as everybody else. We start going, and then we start moving north. I am now just in the Bloor and Dufferin area, just between Bloor and DuPont. And I went to school here, and this is where I've worked and I do my life, and I'm very passionate about this community and this city. And I think, one of the things that really makes me work hard every day is, I felt when I came to this country, you can't imagine, I was 15 years old. For me, it was the end of the world. It was the end. I thought it was going to be
really young.
Yeah, of course. It was just a couple years
ago. I know
ago.
that you got to be over 18, otherwise you couldn't run for office.
But I think that, when you come at age 15, you leave your school behind, your friends, you think it's the end of the world. And I think what really impressed me in here, and what I really appreciated and made it easier for me to integrate in this country, it was that sense of opportunity, that sense that if you work hard, you can have a shot at doing what you love. And at that time, I'd never thought about politics, but I knew that I wanted to do something.
You worked in a political office before.
Yeah, but I studied to be a social worker.
So that mentality, that framework is still there.
It's still there, but I think it's that sense of that we need to give people that want to work hard to give an opportunity to have a decent life in this city. For me, that's what drives me every day.
But you're also concerned about the taxation level on all the property owners.
Well, that's about having a decent life. And to me, what concerns me a lot about this issue is that some people say, we need to increase taxes, and other ones say, don't increase taxes. And it's these very polarized issues that I think we need to be very careful in the days and the politics that we have today. Because
Davenport's probably one of the more working class, blue collar areas in the entire city.
And when I tell
but it's one in transformation, though.
Yeah, and when I tell people, I said, you know what? I will not dismiss the fact that I have people that live in my community that, yes, they have a house that is, it's worth a lot of money, but they make a pension of $15,000, $20,000. So when you go to them and you ask them for, $5,000 in property taxes, $6,000 in property taxes, that's a lot.
Yeah,
and
we're going to have another meeting and another discussion
all about that?
on market value assessment. It's the old story about being cash poor and you die asset
Absolutely,
rich.
and that's what we have to change, is the system that we tax people in this city.
So
That is
you
not
might get
fair.
a chance to do it again there.
Yeah.
Anna. So my special guest has been Anna Bailão, Deputy Mayor of the current council in Toronto and candidate for Ward 9 in the upcoming election, October 22nd. She's a seasoned professional, even though she's rather young, but she's a seasoned professional, and she's looking for everybody to vote for her. Now, the election is October 22nd. We encourage everybody to do their due civic responsibility, and that's to go out and vote on October 22nd. I'm going to sign off by asking you to, as you see down on the screen below, sign up to info@corriere.com, not only to review all of our programs, but also to follow us at Corriere Canadese, info@corriere.com, and you can review things like this video with Anna Bailão, and then you can call her at her constituency office or at her campaign office and go into greater detail on some of the things that she has indicated today. So Joe Volpe for Corriere Canadese, inviting you to go on to info@corriere.com and to follow us on all the social media, Facebook, our website, Twitter, and well, that's about it. There's, I guess, about 4 or 5 channels. Once again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you the next time.